Krishna. Welcome back to our study of the Yoga Sutras. Today we are going to discuss Sutras 20 through 22. So a very quick link of how we came to this particular point. We began this book by describing Yoga Chittavritti Nirodha, and then we saw in Sutras number 3 and 4 about the details about Nirodha, what happens if we do and if we don't. Then we saw the list of vrittis from 5 to 11. And then what is the practice and detachment as part of the yoga from Sutras 12 to 16, we saw the details. In the last few sutras, we saw that based on this practice and detachment, how do I apply this methodology? We saw these two kinds of samadhis, sampragyata samadhi, which is a very conscious, deliberate effort that one makes and one enters into the state of samadhi. And there was the other kind, which we discussed, which is called as asampragyata samadhi. And we spoke about those two kinds, the prakriti layas and the videhas. We spoke about those two kinds of yogis who experience asampragyata samadhi. In today's sutra, we'll see what are those favorable virtues needed for one to attain that state of samadhi. Especially those who are in that asampragyata samadhi who have still not attained at completion, what are the virtues that are needed to reach their ultimate destination? So that is going to be the theme over these three sutras today. So let us see today's sutra. Shraddha virya smriti samadhi pragya purvaka itaresham. So itaresha, for others, their samadhi is preceded by these four characteristics: Shraddha, faith; Virya, vigor, vitality, power; Smriti means memory; and Samadhi Pragya, the discernment needed to attain Samadhi. So these four characteristics are something that Patanjali talks about. These are very, very practical virtues that we can adopt in our spiritual practices. Let us actually see the details about all these four. Shraddha. The word Shraddha many times is loosely translated as faith, but Shraddha is not exactly faith. It comes from the Sanskritam words Shrat, which means truth, and Dha, which means the support, the shelter, something that is based upon. So literally the word Shraddha literally means that which is holding the truth, which becomes the foundation of truth, right? And in a sense, in our own life, what holds on, what gives us that kind of an understanding that this is the right thing to do, is our inner belief, our inner conviction. So in that sense, Shraddha is not just faith, because faith is something that may change sometimes. But deep spiritual convictions, they don't change. Just like, for example, if somebody were to ask you, is it bright or is it dark right now? And you are convinced that it is bright. There's no evidence that can prove that it is dark right now. Just like, because you are so strongly convinced, it is not a belief that, look, I think I believe it is bright right now. It is not just a belief, it is a very strong inner conviction. So the nature of Shraddha is like that. It is not just some kind of a faith or some belief, but rather a very strong, deep-rooted spiritual conviction. And how does this conviction come? It comes through experience of the truth, right? And more so in our own day-to-day life experiences is one thing, but a very powerful way of enhancing this Shraddha quotient within us is by associating with advanced practitioners. By being in the company of such wise practitioners, just listening to them, observing them, spending time with them, expressing our doubts and getting them resolved by such advanced practitioners, our own inner conviction enhances. That is how we can very powerfully develop Shraddha. And this goes on a long way in steadying our attainment of Samadhi. Then he talks about Virya. Virya here means strength. And this is not just physical strength, but even mental fortitude. Both mental and physical strength is what is understood by Virya. And this, in the course of one's yogic practices, there will be a lot of obstacles in our spirituality, in our daily yoga practice. There will be so many obstacles. In order to overcome them, we need both physical and mental courage. And that is what Virya indicates here. So it's not going to be a cakewalk. Our spiritual practices are not going to be a cakewalk. So Patanjali is telling us that, look, while you are having inner conviction, you also have to manifest that outside in the form of this vigor. And these both go hand in hand. You cannot have vigor without faith, and you cannot have faith without display of vigor. And these two have to go together, right? And when we are empowered with Shraddha and Virya, then the next thing comes as Smriti. Smriti, remember, we used that word earlier with regards to Chitta Vrittis, but do not confuse this as another one of those Chitta Vrittis, right? But here Smriti is specifically referring to our ability to remember our past mistakes. And this is how we steady our ship of our spiritual growth. We have to learn from our past mistake. The reason why we study history is so that we don't repeat the mistakes of the past. Likewise, we have to remember our own mistakes. And especially as we are going deeper into our meditative state, sometimes you will see certain thought patterns are repeating. Certain triggers may, recall certain similar thought patterns. And as soon as you see a pattern emerging, you should immediately understand it. Okay, now this kind of Chitta Vritti is coming up. So Smriti plays a very important role, right? In fact, we rely a lot on the Smriti function. It is not that we are reinventing the wheel. We are not coming up with a solution every time a problem comes. At a certain point, we see the pattern of problems in our Chitta Vrittis, and we are equipped. When the Smriti function is there, when we remember our past mistakes, we are ready to handle those similar disturbing thought patterns, right? And prepare ourselves either by creating some kind of a internal mechanism or some kind of an external mechanism itself to avoid those kind of triggers in our life. And finally, he spoke about Samadhi Pragya. Samadhi Pragya. Pragya, remember, we used the term earlier also, right? It's a very deep spiritual intelligence. And the Samadhi Pragya is that discernment. And this comes by Satsanga. Satsanga means company of like-minded spiritual practitioners, where we are constantly sharing with each other our own struggles in our journey, right? This is why Sangha, or association of like-minded practitioners, is such a powerful aid in our own spiritual journey, right? With that, what happens is our deep spiritual intelligence gets fine-tuned, and it creates a kind of it's Samadhi Pragya is like our own internal radar. It's like our internal compass that keeps telling us, okay, this is the direction that we need to go. Both all Shraddha, Virya, and Smriti together, they find their right direction when the Samadhi Pragya is very strong and it is in its right place. And gradually in the course of our practice, and this is something that, we cannot read books or learn just by an academic way. As we go through our own journey of our spirituality, as our chitta gets more and more purified, we will see with that self-purification, the Samadhi Pragya, it kind of blossoms. And these four together, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, and Samadhi Pragya, using these four methods, right, or upayas means techniques or methods, one can actually go deeper into that state of Samadhi, right? And then Patanjali, after having given this technique, now he's going to talk about what are the different kinds of practitioners, with what level of intensity do they apply these techniques. So here in Sutta number 21, he talks about the most intense ones. So what does he talk about? Tivra samveganam asannaha. So Tivra means very intense. Samveganam, with great speed. Vega means speed, and samvega means like very intense speed. Asannaha literally means, like asan. We use the word asan like a place where you sit down, right? A steady state is called as asan. So literally asannaha here means to sit down, to become established, to draw near to something. right? And so Tivra Samveganam Asanaha. So those with that Tivra, with that intensity of their practice, right? They are drawn closer. Closer to what? To their goal of Samadhi. So this is specifically talking about those kind of intense practitioners, right? And this intensity, so all these four, Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, and Samadhi Pragya that we spoke about, somebody can apply them in a very intense way, or there are the other way, which he talks about in the next sutra, Mrudu, Madhya, Adhamatratvat, right? So these are the, Mrudu means very mild application, Madhyama means medium, and Adhamatratvat, like, means intense. So he's talking about, again, among the practitioners, there is a differentiation also in terms of the intensity, which is very natural if you think about it. Like, it's like how life is, right? Imagine there is a race, right? Not everybody will be, the number one participant, right? There will be some people who are very intense. All their life they have performed very intense practice, and they perform intensely as well on the day of the competition. And then you will see some people who may be little medium in their effort levels, and there will also be some people who are very mild or mediocre in their display of their efforts. So Patanjali is saying that, see, as much effort as you put in, so quickly or so easily you will bear the rewards, which is our desired, cherished goal of attaining the state of Samadhi, right? So this is how he defined the sutra. Let us see the recitation. Mridu madhyadhyamatраvat tato api visheshaha. Right? So there is a differentiation among the seekers of Samadhi as Mridu, mild, Madhya, medium, and Adhamatratvat, intense. So this is how he is dividing those different kind of practitioners. Now, certain classical commentators also connect these three levels of intensities with the different kinds of yogis that we have discussed so far. If you remember, if you're going back to sutras number 18, 19, we spoke about those Prakriti Layas, we spoke about the Videhas, and then in the last sutra, we spoke about these four kinds of who are using certain techniques of Shraddha, Virya, Smriti, and Samadhi Pragya. Certain commentators like to call them as these are upayas. They are called upaya pratyayas. So just a small technical classification. So what those two categories that we studied in sutra number 19, those Prakriti Layas who are born with, we were turned inwards. So them he calls them as they are the Mrudus, right? They're just born with a very high advanced state of awareness, but they still don't know what to do. They still can't relate with their experiences, and they still don't commit to a full practice at that point. They need a guide, a guru at that point to get their spiritual journey back on track. They are the mild practitioners or the Mrudu practitioners. Then there are the Videhas who are born on higher dimensions, right? And they are quite steady in their practice, but still it's a medium kind of a practice. And then there are those who, because of the Samadhi Pragya, Smriti, and the other characters, Virya, that the characters that we spoke about in Sutra number 20, right? So he calls them, these are the intense practitioners. So certain commentators like to correlate this sutra with the previous sutras and give an explanation, right? But as a principle, what we understand is that according to the level of effort we put in, we will gain the progress and the success in our own spiritual practice accordingly. Having said this, so far the presentation seems like, I think the effort, with my mind, intelligence, and senses, with my physical, mental, pranic, intellectual efforts, I need to make this happen. I have to attain that state of Samadhi by my own effort, right? But it may seem like Patanjali is saying that. However, in the next sutra, Patanjali is going to give an alternative option. While this seems like a very, self-effort driven kind of a process, which is relatively a difficult process, he's also going to give us an easy process, an easy method to overcome all our challenges that may come up in our spiritual practices. And what is the the more efficient way of attaining Samadhi will be the subject matter of our next sutra. So stay tuned and see you all very soon in our future session. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.